Hi, Dad. So, for anyone who is lucky enough not to know my name, it's Teagan. I'm the kid who occasionally, not today, wears mismatching Converse on purpose, or the kid who occasionally dresses up like a pirate, or that kid who ripped their pants while performing in theater activities twice. Or the kid who's sitting right in front of you right now and will not stop talking. Regardless if you know me under one of those circumstances or by one of the 27 nicknames I respond to, I am now a part of your life. Much of you are probably thinking, oh no. But the fact of the matter is, you all have seen my face and heard me talk, and you can't undo it. I'm sorry. I'd also like to apologize for what follows. I'm looking at you, Mom. For I'm only 17, and it'd be a bit overzealous if I were to come up here and claim to have some great wisdom to share. Sure, I've learned a lot of lessons during these 17 years, and I'm pretty sure you all would find some of my stories humorous. And to be honest, my speech would just turn into a big stand-up comedy act. So, to prevent my mom from disappointment and to shed some light on the younger students embarking on their high school careers, I'd like to instead offer some tools that will teach you a lot of lessons. This is some Play-Doh. This is me. Not really, but you get my point. It's blank, unmolded, no color. The only thing I have is a predetermined shape because of my genetics. On June 3rd, 2000, I was born. I came into contact with my first people. And it was just like that. A disaster. Thank you. You're welcome, Internet. This is me coming into contact with my first set of people. This represents the doctors and nurses in the emergency room. This represents my parents. Although my contact with the doctors and nurses was brief, they still left an impact on me, see by the dents and the fact that there's color remaining. And my parents' contact with me is a bit more lasting because it's a longer period of time. There I have now, in this white piece of Play-Doh, several colors. These are representing the people I've come into contact with, and they're there forever. There's no way you're getting Play-Doh to separate once it's mixed in like this. You can try. Let's fast forward a bit. My first day of preschool, I did not want to go. My mom had to literally drag me out of the car, kicking and screaming, "I'm so sorry, Mom." She took me inside and she got me to play with some toys. I was distracted and then she left. She came back to get me later that day, and she had to deal with the same upset child, but this time not wanting to go with her. Not because I was mad at her, but because I didn't want to leave. Before that day, I had only been exposed to a few people, and I realized how exciting they could be. I wanted more. Thus began my life of being, to put it mildly, an extreme extrovert. I tried to connect with as many people as I could, often by throwing myself in the middle of things. However, I soon realized that inserting myself into people's lives without permission was an easy way to make people uncomfortable. Still trying to figure that out, sorry guys. I still have a problem with this today, but I've learned to knock before I open the door, and if they don't let me in, at least they know I'm outside. Let's jump ahead. After 5th grade, I learned the school I had been attending was going to close. I honestly had no clue what to do. Up until that point, I had attended a school that some of you may remember, you may have attended it, called Fox River Country Day School, or FRCDS. It was a small school with only about 16 kids in my grade level, and because of the sheer amount of time I spent with those kids, they were equal to siblings. As I moved on with my life, I met new people. This representing Fox River kids. As I moved on with my life, I met new people, and the colors from those Fox River kids began to mix. They began to fade a bit. But they never went away. Every time I reminisce about my older classmates, those colors began to stick out. If I look for the red in this Play-Doh, it's very clear to me, even though it's mixing in with every other color I've stuck in here. It's like holding up a black light to a surface. There's remnants of stains and fingerprints that were once there and are still kind of there. You just can't see them unless you're looking with something specific. For the next 3 years, I moved from school to school. This was in my entirety of middle school. I found myself escaping, like many other students, to the internet for some release. This led me to some more amazing people. For just like me, these people were using the internet as a means to let loose and be themselves. Because of this, they were not bringing too much of their lives with them. They were just giving their personality 100%. I was happy this way. I knew so many amazing people who were never-ending resources of their own color. It wasn't until high school that I realized 4 things. Number 1, I had my own desire to spread my colors. And it began with a few more dilemmas. Is that a good or a bad thing? Is it selfish for me to want to see myself in others? I decided no, it's only if I desire credit for myself and others. I began to appreciate and realize that my color in other people can help them see themselves if they blend it correctly. The second thing I noticed is some people don't like the color you have to give them. For an example, I don't really like the color orange that much. No offense to anybody who does, but it's just not one of my favorites. Ironically, it was my favorite when I was a baby. And that's mostly like on its own, it's very obnoxious to me. I'm not a big fan of it. I'm sorry, I can't really give a good reason why. But if you mix it with a different color, let's say pink, it becomes one of my absolute favorites. Because the pink and the orange together bring out highlights in each other that you really don't notice when they're by themselves. It creates a beautiful sunset or a beautiful flower, using the word beautiful a lot. And I think of it the same with ideas. If somebody brings an aspect of their personality that I don't necessarily agree with or like that much, if I connect it with something I already know, then it becomes something wonderful. On the other end of that, the third thing I learned, I began to question, because of some incidents that were happening, I was losing a lot of people around me. I wondered if my colors to give were enough. I almost lost a couple of people I knew to various mental illnesses, and I began to wonder if I can't give to them what is my purpose here. And then I realized something. You don't always see all the colors. They're not all on the outside. Sometimes you have to tear something apart and you can't see the colors that someone else holds. You don't fully know their outlook on life because you're not in their head. You can't see everything. And all you can do is offer your support. I value people, I value their input, and I always want more of it. And the fourth thing I realized is, what happens when that color can't give to you anymore? At the beginning of my junior year, I lost a really close relative. She had been fighting cancer for several years at that point, and during the summer, the cancer had spread to her brain. She technically wasn't related to me. She had no living blood relatives left, but because of that, she had just kind of become a part of the big jumble of people in my family who aren't necessarily related to me, but you know. Might as well be. Those last few months were chaotic, messy. They were a mess of paperwork, and we needed the paperwork to become our next of kin, and we were nervously waiting for medical results. And in this mess of chaos, I remember a specific moment. It was the last time I got to speak with her. It was just me and my brother in a room, and my mom had left to go speak to the nurse. She looked at us and she said, "You know, I never had kids of my own. I always thought of your mom as my kid. And I guess that makes you guys my grandkids." There were so many things I wanted to tell her. And I still regret not having the opportunity to. So, I guess, what's my point in all this? Why did I get in front of you and play with Play-Doh? Well, at the beginning of the speech, if you recall, I said I wanted to show you some valuable tools, and no, the tool isn't Play-Doh, although it is very, very useful. Sorry, I'm losing my place because I'm blind. It's more what the Play-Doh represents. The Play-Doh represents people. I'd like to share a quote with you that comes from, I think some would call it a less than scholarly source. It comes from a podcast. Have any of you ever listened to a podcast by the McElroy brothers called The Adventure Zone? I made new friends today. It's a very good podcast. This quote comes from Griffin. He says, "Our capacity for love increases with each person we cross paths with throughout our lives and with each moment we spend with those people. But too often we neglect that part of ourselves in favor of others. And by the time we realize just how important it is, we find ourselves with fewer folks around to practice with." The last line might sound like if you don't follow these things, people are going to leave you. That's not what I take it as. By the time we realize how important it is, we find ourselves with fewer folks around to practice with. The truth of the matter to the high schoolers in here is we still have a lot of life left to give, which means infinite amounts of paths and infinite amount of connections we are going to make with people. So I encourage you to welcome those opportunities with open arms so you don't stick with blank white. This is boring, you guys. The beauty of a blank canvas is not the white, it's what that canvas can become. And if you spend your whole time trying to protect what it is already for potential, you're never gonna get anywhere. Instead, you could clash and mold with others and end up with something like this. It's much bigger, it's much brighter, and it's what I hope all of you will remember after looking back on these speeches. I'd like to say a few thank yous real quick. Thank you, Mom and Dad, for dealing with me and supporting me, and thank you, Grammy, for teaching me a lot. I'm not gonna get into all of it, but you're a wonderful resource in my life. Thank you to my two brothers I live with, my biological and Roger. Thank you for, keeping me in check. Thank you to all my honorary brothers out there. You know who you are, for also keeping me in check. Thank you to every single person in this room. Even if I don't always agree with you, I still appreciate that you're here. And I mean that truly to every single person in here, even if you think I despise you, I don't. Thank you to my teachers for teaching me what you've already learned, and I hope maybe I have taught you something in return. I hope everyone has a good day.